Hello there, it's Michelle Taboo. Haven't you missed me?
Yeah.
Watch your back, Vince. Anyway, I'm here with Craig Sherman of At Home with Technology. Craig's company performs on-location technology consulting, installations and repair, and is based in Los Angeles County. So if you're here and you need a home theater system put in, right? Don't you do that? Cool. Or you're typing that paper and your computer goes in the middle of the night, call him. It'll cost you, but call him. Yeah. With over 20 years of experience, Craig has been able to help people all over the city and actually the country. Thanks for joining us tonight, Craig.
My pleasure.
So Craig, before we get into the new toys, let's talk about Steve Jobs. How would you say that Steve Jobs changed the way that people interact with computers?
Well, I think he popularized the computer in a way that no one ever had before the advent of Apple. Mm-hmm. It was the kind of thing that, you know, if you worked in a big office or you were in the computer industry, yes, you worked with a computer, but it was never in the home or the school the way the way it is now until Apple came about. Of course, that was all Steve's baby.
Mm-hmm. How many ways would you say that Jobs changed the world with his approach to technology and innovation? I mean, from the iPod. Well, let me let you tell me.
Not to be glib, but I was thinking about how many different ways, and I would say all of them. The world is a very different place now than it was in the mid '70s when he started Apple. And certainly when he came back, we're in the 4th decade of Apple computers now, and the first 10 years were the birth and the rise of Apple that led to the Macintosh, which was the first kind of all-in-one computer. I
played on one of those at school.
Oh, they were the best. And after that came out, not long after, he left Apple.
Mm-hmm. It's a complicated story, folks.
Yes, and it always changes depending on who you ask. But for about 10 years, he wasn't there. It was kind of Apple was in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a Simpsons episode with a joke about the guy who formed Apple Computers. What computers? That joke doesn't make any sense anymore, and I don't think it ever will again, because when he came back in the 90s, he hit the ground running and brought about the iMac, the iPod, Apple stores. You think about it, you go into the Apple store, you get the thing. But there really weren't dedicated computer dealerships like that until then.
And now everybody follows suit. You see the little sad Sony store in the Century City Mall. Sorry, Sony.
We just lost our sponsorship possibility.
Anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, and so making that kind of an impression from everything from how computers are used in the home to how computers are sold at the mall, I mean, nothing's ever going to be the same.
Yeah. So Jobs recently retired as CEO before he passed away, being replaced by Tim Cook. With product designer Jonathan Ive still on staff, how do you think Apple will be changed by the fact that we live in a world without Steve Jobs?
Well, I think that was a good point mentioning Tim Cook and Johnny Ive, because they weren't part of the team the first time Apple was without Steve Jobs. And since he kind of shepherded Cook and the rest of the team to carry on without him, it's going to be much more consistent with his vision. The rumor is apparently that before, aware of his mortality,
he created 4 years.
4 years,
Read that.
So, so he had a vision for the life of the company after his resignation, and of course after his life. So I think that's going to be a really interesting, and of course Ive, the great designer, who gave us the really nice shiny, yes.
They made computers so sexy.
The Apple aesthetic.
Don't rub your mouse while you're reading the prompter.
The Apple aesthetic, I think, is going to stick around for a long time, and that's going to be the key. That's going to be what's recognizable. You open up the laptop and you see that glowing white Apple, and it's that brand recognition, that consistency that people find very comforting, and it's a symbol of reliability. I think that's what's going to stick around.
4 years is not that long, science-wise.
But Apple-wise, think about where we were 4 years ago.
That's true.
Think about
clunky iPod carrying it to teach class.
and that's they run on a different timetable than the rest of the industry, and the rest of the industry always scrambles to catch up. Just look at the past year as far as tablets.
Yeah.
Prior to the first iPad, no one even thought, oh, who would even want a tablet when we have laptops? Now it's a different story.
Right. Everybody's got one. I think Emma just invented a tablet. Anyway, just kidding. When you heard the news of Jobs passing, how did it affect you personally?
Well, I, like many people in this day and age, put my immediate first thoughts down on Facebook. And my one-line obituary was just, what a life. You know, the fact that so young, in such a short time, he was 56. And he was able to do so much in that short time, from Apple to Next to Pixar. Let's not forget that Pixar was also one of his projects, and I certainly enjoy going to the movies more since Steve Jobs. So and you know, all that is just wrapped up into an all too brief life, but boy was it a full one.
It was. All right, Craig, let's talk products.
All right.
And let's cut to the chase. We want to talk about the iPhone. A lot of people expected the iPhone 5 to come out, and what do you make of the fact that it wasn't?
Well, I'm a little contrarian about this. I think it did come out, and I think that the 4S, it's just a label.
Right.
The fact that it looks like the last year's Model 4 is why some people grumble that it's not the 5. But if you look at the internals, from the dual-core chip on the inside, all new software, it's as close to a completely new phone as you can get without changing the shell. And my hunch is, I think they finally landed on a design that they really like. And they're probably not going to change it around too much more after this. It's kind of like the laptops. It's hard to tell this year's MacBook Pro from last year's.
Right.
They found a design that works for them. It's, you know, easy and probably very cost-effective to build, with a very limited metal and mostly glass. And from that, you know, they can just keep cranking them out and meet demand. So I think that is the fifth model.
If the shoe fits, wear it. Talk to me about the iPhone 4S. You personally own pretty much every iPhone, right? So are you going to get this model?
I am. I didn't get the very first iPhone when it was first released, and it was only on the Edge network. That wasn't enough for me. I was like, let's wait a year and let's see how. And of course, a year later, the 3G came out. And
that's how they do. Y'all know that's how they do. They like to have y'all lined up around the corner of the store, like a club, like a nightclub.
And I have been on both sides of that velvet rope, and it's daunting. But the 3GS followed that. And that was the first to have voice interaction with the phone, which was great.
Amazing.
Anyone who's ever had to interact with their phone while driving, that is crucial. And then the 4 came out.
I'm so glad Android copied that.
Well, yeah. Depending on which Droid fan you talk to, there's some give and take as to who copied who. And I think it's great that Droid's around to keep Apple on their toes and vice versa. But with this new model, really the killer app is Siri, the voice interaction, because again, if you're driving and like what happened to me on the way over here, you get a text message, you can't respond to it while you're driving, legally, safely, etc. But if you can just press a button on your Bluetooth and dictate a text message that's going to go back, I mean that's huge. That's going to be, you know, a big improvement.
I read a couple of stories that said that the speed is not going to be the same across all 3 networks.
Did you get the AT&T newsletter that they sent
I
out?
got that too,
and they said, yeah, we're the fastest, so don't leave.
Is that true though?
My attitude about this is it's kind of hard to compare the 3 different carriers in one given place. If you're on a provider, if you're on Sprint or Verizon or AT&T and you get good service and you're happy with the results, stay on them. And if you want the new phone,
don't leave for speed, folks.
Well, yeah. But if you are on AT&T and it's still not a satisfactory
experience,
then try the other ones. I wouldn't let promises of speed be the reason why you switch or stay if you can't make the best use out of your phone.
Yeah.
Plus, there are data caps, which I joke that if it's a faster connection, it just means you hit your cap faster.
Right. Is it personal that T-Mobile is the only carrier that doesn't have?
All right, now, I knew you were going to ask about T-Mobile because now that we have the last pick in the playground. I think because they have such a long lead time to create these things, Apple may have thought, oh yeah, AT&T will go ahead and gobble up T-Mobile by the time this thing comes out, and it might not even be an issue. They got to focus on where is the business going to be, and you know, some say it was a little, you know, tunnel vision, a little myopic. They weren't seeing the whole field, but T-Mobile also only accounts for a fraction of, you know, the whole, and this is just in the United States. You know, they have the whole world to cover. If they miss out on one small carrier in the U.S., I don't think they're going to lose a lot of sleep about it.
Right, right. Well, let's talk about connection speed. What's up with the iPhone still being on 3G?
Well, I think part of it is 4G is still hotly debated, and the different carriers who say they have 4G are arguing over what that means. And that's why when the iPhone 4 came out last year, a lot of people were confused. You mean 4G? No, it's just the fourth iPhone that came out. But 4G, as far as a cellular technology, is still one of these things that, I mean, it's the reason why the first iPhone wasn't on 3G, same reason. So they're waiting for that to get resolved.
It's serious though, because my phone is 4G and it's for real.
Okay.
It's fast. The G2, Hannibal is in the passenger seat jealous every time I'm using my phone, or every time he borrows my phone.
And that kind of feedback is making its way back to Cupertino. And they're hearing about all the other models, all the other phones that are running circles in some cases.
Oh yeah.
But then again, it's also about how they interact with the carrier. And you know, Sprint says they have 4G, Verizon has a 4G. I think what's going to happen next is, and this is me putting on my, you know, prognostication hat, the next model iPhone probably won't be called 5 or 6 or whatever. It'll probably be iPhone LTE. And that's the next big technology, next big format that was true successor to 3G. So that's what I think what Apple's waiting for. But we'll see. You know, I've been proven wrong before. I was hoping there was going to be a new iPad this year, so that didn't happen.
Is that from the chat room?
Yes.
Okay, someone from the chat room wants to know, does Craig think that Apple should change the name of Siri to Steve or iSteve? Oh, honors the man, boost the marketing, because so many would buy the new iPhone just because of that. Well,
you know, the thing is about honoring Steve Jobs is he was not sentimental. The story was that when he came back to Apple in the 90s, he discovered they had a room filled with all their old products. It's like the museum of everything they had made. He said, let's clear this out. We got to look forward. We got to look to the future, not reminisce and linger on the past. So I think in his honor, it would be, let's keep moving forward and not get too maudlin about, he knew, you know, life is short. And I'm sure he would have loved to stick around. I think anyone would. But the fact that the legacy is the products that he helped bring into, we don't need to go ahead and have a memorial edition, hardware or software.
With space on the back.
We know who was responsible for all this, and it's in everything that he touched. I think to label something after him, number one, it does a bit of a disservice to everyone else that worked with him. You know, and put that together. But I think also he would say we got to look forward, not backward.
I got you. Now I know when I'm looking for a phone. Well, finally I found a phone that I think I'll keep for at least another month. Because I'm just like that. I like to have removable media. I need a QWERTY keyboard. I've got all these, you know, specifications that I like. What do you suggest that people use to determine Windows, Android, iPhone when they're making their selections?
You know, I get asked that a lot, and my response is, how do you choose between Coke or Pepsi? It's a personal preference.
Right.
If you're already on an Android phone and you're looking forward to the ice cream sandwich model, it's going to be the next, you know, software that comes out, or you've been with T-Mobile and you've been on their service and you don't want to leave just for a new phone, then dance with who brung you. You know, don't feel like you need to jump into something that you've never tried before. It's the same time I tell people who were on BlackBerry and they were thinking of, well, but there are a lot of them out there.
Oh yeah, they're like a cult.
Well, some would say the same thing about Apple fanboys. So it's but people who were on BlackBerry or Palm. My first smartphone was a Trio, and I loved that Trio, right?
I was so organized back then.
But you know, there comes a time when you have to say, all right, there is what I'm comfortable with, and what doesn't exist anymore. And you've got to say, all right, I'm either having to go on eBay to find old gadgets that they don't make anymore, or I'm going to go ahead and adapt. And then when you're doing that is, if you're on a carrier that you want to stay with, go to that phone store. If you're on Verizon, go to the Verizon store. Yeah, try out the iPhone, but also look at the other handsets that are out there. You might find that you are you prefer the Motorola or the the HTC or one of those, and you can say, all right, I've played with them, I've tried them out. There are just some things that this one has, like you're doing a QWERTY keyboard, that the iPhone will never have. iPhone doesn't believe in removable media. Apple doesn't really believe in removable media or buttons. They want to keep things as minimal as possible.
Sleek. You like that sleek.
And it does very well for them. But if you need buttons, then okay. If that's the deal breaker, ladies, then...
But I also wanted all the apps, so I had to get an iPod Touch to satisfy my desire for the apps.
And the apps have been a big business.
Your technophilia?
Huh?
Your technophilia?
Yeah, my technophilia.
And the apps have been a big business. People have been able to find that middle ground by using the iPod Touch or the iPad, and they can say, all right, so I can still use the phone of my choice, but I don't have to sacrifice that great Apple experience.
Yeah, that's what I do, and then I just tether my, you know the game.
Yeah, you do.
Anyway, so some other crap came out this week. What else was announced on Tuesday?
Well, as far as new products, obviously the new iPhone software is going to be coming out this coming week on the 12th. And that's going to be the iOS 5, that's going to introduce a lot of new features to the mobile devices. They did refresh...
What are some of those features?
Well, let's see, the biggest thing is the cards. I think that's the green cards. We'll talk about that.
You can talk about it.
All right. But that's what's really exciting about that is it helps personalize greeting cards and sending those out in a way that, I mean, frankly, you go to the Hallmark store and you buy a big, pack of greeting cards, it's still not going to have your face on it. It's still not going to be designed by you. And, when it comes to being personal and reaching out to family and friends and clients, you want to give it as personal a touch as possible.
Yeah, you want to put that digital stank on it. You know what I mean? That digital stank. Yes. Sorry. But
getting back as far as hardware releases, they did refresh the iPod Nano, and that's multi-touch now. Well, I think the question is, do I think it's worth upgrading? And if you have the 4 and you want things like Siri, then that's a feature. Like I said, it's a killer app. And if you are in a situation where maybe your contract will allow you to upgrade from the 4 to the 4S, then I would say go for it. If you don't think you're going to need those features that are exclusive to the 4S, like Siri and a couple of the other items that utilize that dual-core processor, and you're already happily on AT&T or Verizon, you don't want to go to Sprint or anything like that, then you'll never, there's no penalty for waiting, because there's only going to be better stuff down the line. Now, if I think the LTE model is going to be next year at this time, it's hard to say. They were kind of later in the wave than they used to be. It used to be the beginning of the summer, new iPhone. But they didn't do that this year. Who knows if they're going to push it till next fall or later for the next generation iPhone. I can't
wait, you're saying that the iPhones didn't previously have the voice command texting?
The 3GS introduced voice control for certain features like play a track or play an album or an artist.
But you couldn't text with it?
Nope.
Okay, then they totally stole that from Android, because I've been doing that for a year.
Yeah.
And a half.
Yeah, and they've learned, and I'm glad Android's around to do that, to be that influence and say, oh, well, people are really responding really well, and then there's also those things that people aren't responding very well to. If you look at some larger phones, someone did a study, and they're too big for you manipulate with one thumb. But the iPhone is just narrow enough that you can get everything in one hand, and that's kind of the lesson they learn from looking at other manufacturers. Saying, that one's too big. We need to get something in the sweet spot.
Yeah, I've had women tell me that. I have big hands, so I don't have that problem. But yeah, some of my friends have had issues with the same phone that I have, the G2. We talked about cards. Is there anything else you want to tell us about before I ask you about your company?
Well, hang on. I'd like to discuss iCloud if possible, because we have some people who don't.
I didn't think you'd want to talk about
what I want and what other people want are not the same thing.
All right.
My husband's anti the cloud, but we're going to talk about the cloud for you.
Well, the cloud's really interesting because it allows you're not going to be dependent on the life and health and safety of your mobile device for the content that you want to view on it. I myself, before there was iCloud, there was Mobile Me, and that was kind of their experiment, their first foray into that. And I had all my contacts and calendars and email living in the cloud on Mobile Me, and then my iPhone died.
Yeah.
Now, I was able to go into the store, replace it through the Apple Care plan. They gave me a new empty iPhone. I turned on Mobile Me, I signed in, and it populated with all my content. Now they're going to do that with iCloud to include your music as well, all your media.
Wow, yeah.
So photos, videos, songs, it's all going to be in the cloud. It's all going to sync to your other devices without having to plug in a cord, which is going to be great. And it's going to be one of these things where if your music collection, if your hard drive crashes, you didn't lose all those songs.
Or if you dropped your MacBook Pro in the toilet. It happens, folks. It does. Apple made some other announcements regarding software. I know we talked about cards, but can you talk about a couple of other surprises from Cupertino?
Well, I think the iOS 5, including the iCloud, that was the biggest. And cards was really exciting, but
digital stank.
I know that's how I'm going to be setting up my holiday cards this year. The fact that they're covering postage is especially yeah. They're covering for the cost of the print the card and they'll mail it for you and everything else. I think the US
I'm just
Post
going to
Office,
say, as a graphic designer, I'm anti-cards. Sorry, I'm anti it. Sorry, it's putting me out of the holiday cards business. Thanks. Now all I have is logos, so I gotta wait for a bunch of douchebags to start up companies so I can make their logos.
Actually, I don't know if I agree with that. I think you could position yourself in saying, yes, there's this software called cards, but instead of you, the end user, having to figure out what's the best design to represent you, you hire someone who is a specialist in cards to help custom tailor that app, that feature, so that their cards come out with your unique touch.
Craig Sherman, ladies and gentlemen, my new marketing director.
That's a really innovative concept. I wonder where he came up with it.
Fantastic. He was in our wedding, you know. This is Craig. Hannibal's dog, Craig. That's how he introduces him. Anyway, finally, Craig, can you tell us about your company, At Home with Technology?
We are going to be celebrating our 7th birthday in February.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
his company's an Aquarius.
Yeah. Groundhog Day is the anniversary.
Was that intentional?
Again.
Yes, every year it seems to be on the same day. But I've really enjoyed this first decade as we've been growing and getting to meet all the great people who work with us.
Why don't you name some of those? Some of them are famous.
Yes, we've kind of touched the stars of Hollywood and the recording industry, and I actually have.
When you look at cribs and you see those home theater systems, some of them were done by Craig. I'm just gonna pump this guy up here, okay? Some of them were done by Craig.
It's true.
It's true. True. So if you want your crib pad, one of those pimped out, you call Craig.
Been a while since she's been on camera.
Craig the crib pad pimper outer. I like it. What do you think?
See, we're helping each other with marketing.
Marketing.
There you go.
Craig the pimp pad pimper outer.
Marketing and drinking.
I'm drunk too.
So yeah, but if you were to go to my website.
What is that website?
HomeWithTech.com.
No funny spellings.
The word home, the word with, the word tech, TECH.com. You can also see us on Facebook and Twitter, which is you can see all that on the contact tab of our website. And I will be putting this interview up.
All right.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that. And take a look, give us a call if you're in the LA area, LA County or the neighboring counties. Be happy to come out and take a look and see how I can help.
We'd like to thank Craig for coming on this show. We really appreciate your time. Do you think you'd be available for future shows? Maybe answering some tech questions in the chat room from afar?
I would be happy to. I hope that when the time comes, it's not to eulogize anyone else. I hope that we can come under happier circumstances, but yes, I'd be my pleasure.
Thank you. Well, that was fantastic. Again, thanks to Craig Sherman from At Home with Technology. That's HomeWithTech.com. Visit that. I'm Senior Savvy Correspondent Michelle Taboo, signing off here. I know you missed me, but I'm going to bring on in Vince Moore because he is your host. Love him, hug him, adore him. I'll be back.